dead and lovely listeners, and welcome to the brand newest installment of the brand greatest horror movie podcast in this multiverse and beyond. It's Dead and Lovely, here with the host with the most. It's me, your good buddy, Uncle Ben.
And me, the ghost with the least. Hollywood Steve.
And we are joined today, as we promised on the last episode, by a very near and dear and tan and handsome individual, a good friend of ours who has supported the show from day number one and broadened my worldview and expanded me to so many movies and obscure flicks and directors and things that I had never even heard of back in our college days when I was still probably rocking some jorts and he was still probably rocking a pretty good Caesar cut, like a blonde Caesar cut. Looking like he just stepped off of a Sears or JCPenney modeling shoot, just looking real handsome.
Yeah.
I'm talking, of course, about my good buddy, Brandon Suttles. Say what's up, Brandon.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Thank you guys for having me. It's quarantine time. JCPenney's is closed. They don't need me right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's how you freed up your schedule.
Yeah.
Got it.
I am available to anyone. Well, not anyone. I got a wife and kids, so.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And dude, we've wanted to have you on the show for freaking ever, but like back in the day, whenever we were recording in person, sitting face to face with each other, my recording equipment only allowed me to have 2 microphones, so we couldn't have guests back then. And now, like, I've upgraded my equipment and stuff, and I can have tons of mics, but now I can't have any people around. So, thankfully, due to the wonders of technology and that Edison telephone machine that he created for us. No, it was Graham Bell.
That was Alexander Graham Bell, yeah.
Homeschool doesn't work, guys. Homeschool doesn't work at all. We're able to connect and do this thing remotely. And, you know, it's a good thing that we're not meeting in person because it's a grubby time to be in the United States. And Brandon doesn't have much of an immune system right now. And you guys are helping him fight back some crazy illness and stuff. A couple months ago, we posted up Brandon's GoFundMe for... Brandon, what is the name of your condition?
It's called MDS, or myelodysplastic order, or myelodysplastic syndrome, which is a rare blood cancer that's similar to leukemia.
Hey.
So got diagnosed in December, waiting to get transplant done here soon, hopefully. But right now I've been doing chemotherapy, but hopefully by the end of this month or beginning of next month, transplant can get started, and it'll be 100 days in Nashville and then a year of clinical trial chemo after that. So
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll have a lot of time to watch a lot of horror movies and listen to some more horror podcasts.
It's a good thing you got a plan, though. You know what's happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No doubt. And of course, whenever we posted up Brandon's GoFundMe, which we'll also post up at the release of this episode, we'll post that up on our Instagram and Facebook and stuff.
Oh, thanks, guys.
We had a bunch of you Dead and Lovelies pitch in, which means a ton to me, and I can only imagine what that means to you, Brandon.
Oh, yeah. So many people reached out and made comments on the GoFundMe page that they had found me through your page, and so tons of really kind people. So thank you all for that just shared it and that donated. Either way, sharing or donating is important in both ways because the Black community and the Latino community need more bone marrow donors. So it's really easy. Just go to bethematch.com and they send you a kit at home, swab your mouth, send it back, and then you're in the system. Because I got a 70% chance of finding a donor, whereas if you're Black or Latino, it drops to 20 to 30%. So,
holy moly, I didn't know that.
Wow.
So that's what I've been trying to push a lot lately since, I've got donors. I've already got,
no doubt.
One fell through, but I've got 2 more already. So
well, that's great.
Share, be a donor, and donate if you can. That's fine too.
Good to know, man. It's also just shocking to find out that healthcare in America is expensive. What? I never knew this.
Huh.
Yeah. So one of the pills that I take it's called posaconazole. And I needed a refill the other day, but insurance needed a letter to get approval, blah, 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 and all that stuff that I needed to keep taking it. So I was like, well, I'll just get the 3 pills I need to take for tonight. 3 pills, no insurance, $161.
Holy cow.
And I usually get a 30-day supply. And I just wanted 3 pills.
That is crazy.
So it's roughly like almost $5,000 if you were to get the full 30-day supply. Yeah.
Wow.
That is insane.
That is wild, man.
And that's one of the 7 or 8 medicines I take daily.
Ugh.
Jeez, dude. Yeah, so what you're saying is, like, whenever somebody has a scenario like this and they have a GoFundMe and stuff, every dollar really does make a big difference.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, and we had budgeted originally to hopefully, we thought we would already be in transplant at this point. But I kept getting sick, being put in the hospital and stuff. Other things kept happening. So everything got pushed back. So now we're having to re-update the GoFundMe page because we still got to do 100 days in Nashville.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're about budgeting for that. So hospital bills suck.
Yeah. So everybody that can pitch in, please do. It would mean the world to us and to Brandon both. But, Brandon, I think that we need to give these bustas a little background about how we entered each other's lives, because actually you got in touch with my wife, who was not my wife at the time. She was my girlfriend in a college. You got in touch with her first whenever you posted up. This is the thing y'all got to remember. When we were in college, this is like pre-Facebook. This is like kind of pre-social media, as MySpace was starting.
MySpace
so this was
starting.
Yeah, MySpace was like just getting going.
But this is in the age of the bulletin board.
Yeah, MySpace and hotornot.com. Anybody remember, any of your listeners remember that one?
Yeah.
I totally
Try to bring that one back.
Hot
now.
or not. Oh my God, man. But yeah, basically you and my wife went to the same college and you wanted to start a movie club, right?
Yes.
And what was the ad that you put up? You just kind of posted it up all over the campus, right?
Well, I went to my professors and everything and tried to put together a film club that could get together once a week and watch a movie and everything like that, but they just weren't interested. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just send a mass email out to everyone on campus.
Wow.
Through the campus email. And I literally said, hey, they won't let me do this, so if y'all just want to hang out, we can meet up wherever and then go to other people's houses or apartments and watch movies and hang out and watch movies.
Yeah.
And so there was like 5 people out of the entire campus that responded, 2 of which were Kate and the other one were Sister Jessie. So
yeah.
they had no idea.
Yeah, I remember Kate getting this email and being like, there's a guy at college that wants to start a movie club. I'm going to go meet him at Perkins.
Wow.
And I'm like, you're going to go get serial killed.
Yeah.
I'll join you with my big imposing self that I am.
You're going to go get serial killed.
Yeah, dude. And I'm going to be the one to stop that from happening. And we went out to meet you at Perkins, which is kind of like a low-rent Denny's kind of restaurant in the Southeast. And it was me and Kate and her sister Jessie and you, and there was 2 other people that just completely didn't join the conversation whatsoever and sat at their own table. And I wonder what happened to them.
I don't know. Where are
weird.
they now? Maybe I send another mass email out and figure out where they are.
No doubt, man. But whenever we met, this was kind of before I really was like really into movies. Like I liked watching movies and stuff like that, but this is even before I got into horror flicks and stuff. And whenever, we started hanging around with you and just, hitting it off right away and staying up all night talking and watching movies and stuff, that's when you introduced me to Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and all the like classic franchises and stuff. So I think it's safe to say that without your evil influence, like there wouldn't be a Dead and Lovely because I wouldn't have got into horror movies like I did.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, between Kate and I influencing you evilly, we helped create the Ben that is the Ben today.
You rebuilt him. You made him stronger, weirder, less bowl cutty.
Hey! Don't knock the bowl cut.
Yeah,
it's coming back. It's coming back.
Yeah, because
know,
it has
right?
to, right? Because people are at home.
JCPenney's doesn't stand a chance without it.
Oh, man.
Let's do. That's kind of like, the easiest at-home quarantine haircut. Just put a bowl on the old head and go to town with some skizzers, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, it's been a wild ride knowing you over all these years, and we've definitely watched many a flick together, but I'm kind of curious to find out what you've been watching this week.
Well, lately, my wife and I we finished up watching Schitt's Creek, which I know isn't horror.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's an incredible show. I just recently got hooked on it maybe a month or 2 ago. We just binged it and finished the 6th season now. So, I know it's not horror, but any Schitt's Creek fan out there or any fan of Eugene Levy or improv?
Yeah.
Definitely. It's one of my probably top 3 TV shows of all time, probably.
It's fantastic. Like, we've been watching it too. I've talked about it on the show a couple times. We're on like season, I think 3 or 4 right now. And it's like every season it just gets better and better.
Emily and I have it on the list of movies we're going to watch, but we haven't gotten to it yet.
You'll love
it. But I have seen the first couple of episodes and definitely am into it.
I won't spoil anything, but Ben, have y'all got to the dance and singing sequence with David?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it at that.
I'm interested already there because I already know that's going to be amazing.
I'll leave it at that.
So is the final season good without spoiling anything?
The final season is perfect.
Awesome.
It's exactly what it should be. I mean, you hate to see it end, but the characters develop so well throughout each season, and they're characters that you don't think would develop, but they do.
Man, that's awesome. I can't wait to get to it, dude. I guess that last season will be hitting Netflix like this fall, right?
Yeah, I think it hits in October.
Okay.
But you can buy it out there. That's what we did. We couldn't wait because we're like, October, we don't know where we'll be. Let's go ahead and watch this now.
Right, yeah.
Any other things you've been watching?
Went through and watched, I don't know if anyone out there is a big fan of Japanese cinema, but I am, and I just got the box set of Shinya Tsukamoto, who did Tetsuso the Iron Man and many other
very normal movies.
Normal movies.
Very normal.
Very normal, mainstream. I'm sure everyone's seen them. But I've been going through a lot of Japanese cinema here lately.
Okay.
How would you compare Tetsuo the Iron Man to the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Iron Man? How similar are they?
They're almost the exact same. I saw Endgame in 4DX, and I wish I could see all of Tsukamoto's films in 4DX because they're so mainstream and I think people would love them in 4DX.
Are the rest of this guy's flicks all that weird?
Yes and no. They get less weird as they go on and become more normal because he just starts getting older and just becoming a different person. But the box set that's available has even his films he did when he was in high school and college, like on 8mm. So he was doing all that stop motion style stuff back even when he was in high school and college. And he was doing this cyberpunk genre before cyberpunk was a big thing, and this was back in like 88, and then the cyberpunk community kind of took him in, and then he started making films that weren't very cyberpunkish, and everybody was like, what happened? Well, he just grew up and changed is all.
He sold out. He sold out.
Well, the thing is, the crazy thing about him is he stars in 90% of his movies. He's usually the main guy, but there's a couple where he's not the main star. But he shoots most of his films. He writes and produces and directs all of them. He's got full control over everything. Like,
wow.
He'll take months sometimes to shoot a film, take his time, where he's had crew just leave the sets because he was just doing everything on his own.
Wow.
So, because Tarantino wanted to do a Tetsuo Iron Man 3 and have him do it in the States, and Tarantino told him you can have full control, but he didn't accept it because he was worried he would lose control of everything that he had, and he didn't want to do it. But he went and made Tetsuo 3 anyway, and it's not really good. It's on Hulu though, if anyone wants to watch it. I think it's called I think it's called The Bullet Man. But it's not good.
Man.
It's not good. The sequel is good. The trequel is not good.
The trequel.
The trequel. That's my new thing.
And of course, that's not the only Japanese director that you're into. You're the one that got me into Takashi Miike flicks. Like, we've done Audition on the podcast, and I think Ichi the Killer was one of the first ones that you showed me a long time ago too. Freaked me the heck out whenever I watched that movie.
Yeah, because Ichi the Killer was the first one I was introduced to as well. Then it was Audition, but I quickly became a Takashi Miike fan in college to the point where I ended up writing my thesis paper on him and everything. So yeah, just to say I'm a fan of Takashi Miike is definitely putting it lightly.
You watched Audition again recently, right?
I did. My friend Guillermo Diaz came in from California.
Oh, hey, hang on, Brandon. You just dropped a name back there.
Oh, man,
you want to go back
that?
and pick that up? You just dropped a name.
What is that there? Is that Guillermo Diaz? Is that the man who played the boyfriend of Jaime in the 6th season of Broad City?
Yes.
The very one.
That is one of my favorite things he's done recently because he's so like sweet and gentle in it, which just comes across really genuine.
He's a great dude.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic human being.
Yeah. If y'all don't know him, he's got a new show on ABC, United We Fall, family sitcom, very different from what he's used to doing.
Yeah.
but it's still really good, and he's charming in it. So
He's
definitely
awesome.
check him out. But he came into town to visit. We've been friends for years, and he came into town to visit my family. So obviously, as soon as I found out he had not heard of or seen any Takashi Miike films, I took it upon myself to educate my friend
How did that go?
and introduce him to Audition. I chose Audition instead of Itchy the Killer just because I've learned from my mistakes. And I also knew my wife would be in the house and probably watching it with us. So I was like, my wife's going to be here. Audition is the safer bet.
Okay. Audition is the safer bet.
Yeah, that's the scary part. When Audition is the safer bet. I mean, it was either that or Visitor Q. So
Oh, God. So, did he like the flick?
he did.
Awesome.
He was definitely not expecting what he saw, but he definitely
Who would
enjoyed
be?
it. Yeah. I mean, the first half is pretty much, typical rom-com sort
Right.
of
And
storyline.
then a little bit different after that.
And then it becomes,
You know what, though? That movie might be built as some kind of a litmus test to see if, like, one of your new friends is a psycho. Because if you watch that with somebody and they're like, yeah, that's about how I thought it would go.
Yeah.
You're like, you got to leave the house now.
That was very romantic.
Never talk to me again. Yeah. I just want a relationship like that.
Yeah, it
Aww.
was a nice romantic film, just like Midsummer.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly,
Yeah.
just like Midsummer. Everybody wants those kinds of relationships.
Yeah, you should actually do a double feature, Audition and Midsummer back to back.
Yeah.
I think so. Did you show him any other flicks?
I did. We watched another Takashi Miike film because it was short. Imprint, the one he did for Masters of Horror for Showtime, that was banned.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
Yeah, Imprint
it is crazy.
Yeah, brutal.
Yeah, and then I felt bad for. I was like, I'm just showing him two torture films, pretty much back to back. He's going to think this is all this guy does. Because I told him, I was like, Miike's done like over 100 movies, and 2 of them he's just seen that have been torture. He also does this musical comedy horror film, a partial claymation and sing along featuring
Yay.
zombies.
Something for everybody.
Yeah, so bring the family.
What have you been on, Steve?
Well, Emily and I watched a documentary the other night that I'm going to recommend, but I don't want to say too much about because you do not know where this is going. Even if you know the story, because this is from 2004, the basic premise is this guy had some grievances in town and he turned a bulldozer into a tank and chaos ensued.
And this is based on a true story. Like, this really happened.
Yes, and there's footage of the chaos and all that. It is wild. It goes deep into like what caused it, and like by the end of the documentary, you're not sure exactly who to trust. There's definitely some mental health issues going on, but there's also potentially a lot of truth to a lot of the things he says, and he taped basically, I guess, what would be a suicide note, where he aired all of his grievances, and they just investigate those grievances, and it's wild. It's well worth checking out. It's on Hulu. It came out.
What's it called?
Tread. I think it came out last year, maybe. But yeah, it's a slow build. Keep with it, like, because especially if you do know the story and you know where it's going, you're like, oh man, I know there's action coming, but you just cannot guess where it's going.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, I've got to watch that for our new like Docu-Monday thing that we're doing.
Check it out.
Maybe I'll do that one next time it's my turn to pick.
Yeah.
What else you see?
I've also continued my wrestling watching.
Get some razzle on.
Yeah. Not a whole lot to say about it except that I finally got to see a match that I'd only seen a picture from in 1999 on a wrestling...
Oh, you sent me the photo of this.
I saw this picture in 1999 on a wrestling forum message board of Chris Jericho being carried out of an arena with a broken arm covered in blood.
He looked like he'd just been in a car crash.
It is
like,
insane.
It
so much blood, and I never knew like what the match was, and they have it on the WWE Network.
Dude.
It aired on Smoky Mountain Wrestling TV on Sunday morning.
Oh, man. So that's just how you start your Sunday off, is watching that.
Yes.
Wow. It's funny you mentioned that, too. Kay was just recently listening to I think it's an episode of Smodcast, Kevin Smith's podcast, and there's another part of it that was on Jericho's podcast from like October of last year, where him and Kevin Smith watched through Pulp Fiction.
Oh, wow.
And I just happened to be in the room during one part when Jericho was talking about, he's like, yeah, at that point I was living in Knoxville, Tennessee. Actually, it was Morristown, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Worked for Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So it must have been that time period.
Yeah. I just have been kicking myself watching those Smoky Mountain Wrestling shows because I remember being like 13, 14, and my mom's boyfriend being like, let's go see some Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And I just thought it was like off-brand wrestling, but they were having they had Chris Jericho and Lance Storm. They had some big names then, and they also had people like Jake the Snake Roberts and Cactus Jack come in. So like, man, we really missed out back in the day.
Well, no doubt. I think there's something about the age that we lived in, and maybe this is just me, but I know that I was completely brainwashed by like name brand dominance.
Yeah,
where it was
me
like,
too. Yep.
Oh man, we got Honey O's instead of Honey Nut Cheerios. It's a bag cereal. Where's the box, Mom? It can't be as good without the box.
Yeah, if you couldn't get Nikes, like I remember I had a pair of British Knights and I was so embarrassed by them. But I think back to them and I thought they were so cool in reality when I saw them, but I was embarrassed to have them because they were like off-brand. But they were in fact the British Knight Michael Jackson design. They were so
You'd be
cool.
moonwalking with those.
They were so cool.
Did the shoes make you want to beat it?
Absolutely.
Last night you guys had the old screaming chat,
yes.
didn't you?
Yeah. Man, it was a blast because I saw the documentary Scream Queen, which is about the guy who plays Jesse in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, which is a very...
Mark Patton.
Mark Patton.
There it is. Thank you.
Which is like, watching it now, we see overtly gay tone to it. And then Mark Patton is a gay male who was playing the role that it was written the way he would play it. So it comes across very gay. Watching the documentary, it's really good. It will also make you sad because it ruined his career because this was the height of the AIDS crisis, and because he played this lead and he did a great job, but his agent said, yeah, you can carry a movie, but you'll have to be a character actor because you cannot play straight.
Oh, man.
Wow.
So the movie basically ruined his career. And there's like some catharsis in it too, because the writer of the movie has like strongly denied for a long time that he intentionally wrote the gay stuff in there, and has more recently admitted that he did. And so
he has. He's gone back on it.
Yeah, so there's a good bit of like tension in there too. So yeah, Scream Queen, well worth watching. But I mean, it was the best movie I think we've ever watched on a Friday night stream chat, other than stuff that Joe Bob does.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow, man. Awesome. So then you got to watch the actual Elm Street 2 right
Yeah,
after
we watched
that.
Elm Street 2.
It's been a while since I watched it, man. Still a winner.
It's so great, man. It's really great. The pace of it is so good too.
It's killer.
Yeah,
It's
I think it builds really well.
Brandon, you like that one, don't you?
I do. I've always loved, especially the opening with the bus.
Yeah.
So cool.
It's like stuck on the pillar, that rock
yeah,
pillar.
Stuck on the pillar. Just the effects that they use in the
like
the way they
miniatures.
built all that, and the miniatures. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Miniatures.
Yeah. It's very dreamlike.
It's very dreamlike. It looks great. Still holds up today.
Yep.
And then the party scene at the pool.
Yes.
Freaking amazing.
It's awesome.
You're all my children now.
Yeah, Freddie adopted him. It was sweet of him.
That's good of him to do.
Yeah,
he's
that's
nice
a
like
Laura
that.
Latour joke.
Oh, yeah? Nice.
That came from the streaming chat. It was really, it made me laugh a lot.
I am shocked that none of those kids were like, we have parents.
Yeah, I don't need a father. Thank you.
One is more than enough. Thanks. So I wish I could have tuned in for that, but last night was the only time I had to watch the movie that we're going to be talking about
That's
today.
fine.
So
We
I
had a
had to
great
make
time.
a choice. I had to do it. So I watched The Changeling instead. But I also watched a couple of other little flicky flicks this week I'm going to tell you guys about. You guys ever heard of an Alicia Silverstone? You ever heard of her?
I have.
Yeah, the girl from the Aerosmith videos. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. You ever heard of Paul Rudd?
Ooh, the Ant-Man himself.
That was the guy from the 80s toy commercial. Was it? It wasn't Crossfire, was it?
I think it was Crossfire.
No, it was Super Mario 3.
Oh, was it
the Mario 3 commercial?
Right.
Yeah.
He was that cool kid in it.
Yeah. I don't know if it had the Power Glove or not, but he was at least Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, they happened to star together in a movie you may have heard of called Clueless, and I watched that the other night.
That's such a great movie. How'd it
It's
go?
so fun.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so fun. I also kind of did forget about the stepbrother.
Oh, yeah, that is weird.
That's a little weird.
Yeah.
A little weird.
That comes from the Jane Austen, what was it? Is that Sense and Sensibility or Emma that they were? I can't remember. But, yeah, it's still weird. I mean,
A little bit.
yeah.
That was a good watch. And also the other night while we were assembling our super cheap elliptical machine that we bought off of Amazon because all the gyms are closed, we put on Jaws while we were doing that just to ease the tension.
Ooh.
You know?
Dun, dun.
Jaws is awesome.
Yeah.
It's the perfect movie, really.
Especially a great, summertime flick to watch the year that you're definitely not going to the beach.
Yes, for
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Yeah.
You watch that movie and you're like, you know what sucks? Beaches. Look
Yeah.
how miserable this
Who
is.
needs them? They're full of sharks.
Nobody. Full of sharks, full of Miss Kittners. Miss Kittner, the original Karen. Am I right?
She'll
Yes.
slap a cop for sure.
Absolutely. She wants to speak to the manager
She did.
of the beach
She'd be like,
now.
no Baywatch on my watch.
That's right. That's right. The subject of our show today is going to be The Changeling, which is
That's right.
a choice made by our good buddy Brandon here. This is the movie that you wanted to choose, and I want to know why you got into it. But first, before we get into the movie review proper, Brandon, I just feel like these people, they need to get to know you from the insides.
Whoa.
They need to get to know you better. They need to know you more deeply,
Ooh.
more deeplier.
Deeply.
So I say before we start the movie review, how about we just take a little pit stop here into the preview palace.
All right.
Ooh. 4 tires, quick, go, go, go.
Oh, it's a pit stop. Go, buddy, go, go, go.
Welcome to the Preview Palace, Brandon Suttles edition.
Dun, dun, dun.
I just really hope that somebody caught that I just made a little jab at the PlayStation 1 NASCAR, I think it's NASCAR 98 video game, the one that starts off with
man.
flirting with disaster. Because every time you leave the pit stop in there, the guy on the speakers goes, "Go, buddy, go, go, go."
Go, buddy, go,
I
go,
really
go.
hope
Oh, I
somebody
remember
caught
that
that, and they were
now,
like, "He just
yeah.
made a NASCAR reference for PlayStation." I hope somebody got it.
I hope so too.
All right, Brandon. So, in order for these guys to get to know where you're coming from and what your angle is, what you're all about, for the Preview Palace section here, I would love just to get a rundown of your top 5 horror flicks. You're on a horror podcast. You introduced me to so many of my favorite horror movies. So I think you need to let these buses know about your top 5 and maybe drop some honorable mentions along the way too.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I'm sure you had an easy time narrowing this down, right?
Completely. Uncle Ben asked me to do this, and I started typing them out, and next thing I know, I was at number 36 and didn't know where to go from there. So
Wow.
So I figured I would just get out of the way and say obviously. Typical films like The Shining, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Misery,
Poltergeist,
Right.
Carrie, your typical classics. Obviously, I'm a big fan of. So I wanted to try to point out some more, I guess, what I think are more unknown films.
Cool.
To people.
Give these people some new things to check out. I like it.
Yeah. I'll throw in a recent one, which is rare for me.
Okay.
So recently, I thought this little film called Harpoon.
I've never even heard of this.
I haven't either.
I thought it was really, really cool. Great practical effects. Just a couple of friends that go out on a boat, and things happen.
Okay.
But it came out end of last year, I think. It's on. I don't know if it's got to be streaming somewhere, but I bought it on Vudu.
Okay.
But
Is it
Harpoon,
like a man versus nature kind of movie like Jaws or something?
Oh no,
okay.
It's man versus woman. It's about complicated friendships.
Sounds like American Gladiators.
Yes, just like American Gladiators.
So it's laser and nitro and lace, I guess.
Lace, yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely watch that based on those recommendations and comparisons.
Yeah, it's great. I guess for older stuff or semi-older stuff, I also threw in a Spanish film called The Orphanage.
Oh, yeah.
Orphanage. I've heard of that, but never seen it.
Yeah. Oh, we should do it on the show, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Guillermo del Toro produced it. It's hard to find. It's streaming like somewhere, but like you can only rent it on Vudu. You can't buy it. It's like one of those. Like it's difficult to find nowadays, but it is streaming somewhere.
Okay, The Orphanage. I know I've heard people talk about it. I want to say some other people, maybe even on the Facebook group, suggested that we cover it at some point.
Yeah, it's been suggested. It's definitely on our list, and it's one that I also enjoy.
Is it one of them movies where they don't be speaking English? I gotta read while I watch this movie.
It is one of them. They speak that Espanol.
I'm gonna have to have you over so you can read the movie to me while I watch it. Okay?
What's them words say?
I'll whisper everything in your ear for you.
Oh, now we're definitely doing it for sure.
That's a Netflix and chill. I know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's your number 4 pick. Very cool. I'll have to check that out because that sounds intriguing. Like, what's kind of what genre of horror would you say it is? Is that a haunting flick? Like, what is it?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to say too much about it, honestly.
Okay. All right.
Because
can't spoil it.
It's got some like slow reveals and stuff. It's good. It's the one I think you will find. I haven't seen it in a few years, but when I saw it, I thought this movie is from the mid 2000s. I think it's probably one of those like early mid 2000s movies that actually stands out as good.
What do you got sliding in at your number 3 position, Brandon?
Oh, this is an odd one, but I like to give this film kind of a shout out when I can, and it's definitely it's one I watched when I was in college. It's called Titicut Follies.
Never heard of this either.
I haven't seen this, but I think I know what it is. Is it the one about the insane asylums?
Yeah, it's a documentary about insane asylums.
Ooh.
I guess it was back in the 70s.
Yeah, I have read about it. I think you're right. I think it is the 70s.
Well, that's back when they were treating mentally ill people really, 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 really well.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what could be scary about that.
Basically, it's imagine Faces of Death, but actually real.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And I'm pretty sure it's all in black and white, so it just makes it even creepier.
Yeah, it's one of the things that American Horror Story Season 2 is referencing. But I've never seen it. Just reading the descriptions of it was like, ooh, gosh, no, that's a movie you don't come back from, I guess. But it's also important because it exposed what was going on.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a documentary or is it a movie?
It's a documentary.
Oh.
But it's frightening.
It is very frightening.
Very dark. Wow. Okay, so that sounds shocking and depraved. What about your number 2 choice? Is it something light and uplifting and fun?
Yes. I'm probably going to go with House.
Oh.
House.
Yeah,
dude.
Now, which one am I talking about is the question.
Okay, is it the Korean, I believe?
Because both I enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with the Japanese House.
Japanese, right, okay.
Yes.
It's a really normal movie.
Yeah,
really
that's
normal.
a strange
very,
one.
very normal. But I love everything about that movie. It's especially for the time or period it was made in. It just looks incredible. It's creepy as hell. And I mean, if you're a cat person, you'll love it.
How similar is it to Cats? Is it as scary or scarier than Cats?
Well, nothing's scarier than Cats.
That's
actually my
Cats.
number 1. Thanks for the spoiler.
yeah, spoilers.
How similar is it to House MD?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Is Hugh Laurie in it?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
House
Good.
MD was
Good.
the direct sequel to it.
Okay. I gotta watch it with that in mind now.
Yeah, I thought that was obvious. I'm sorry.
So this guy is gonna get addicted to Vicodin, you're gonna think the whole time, right?
When did House come out?
77.
Whoa, it's that old?
Yeah, the Japanese one came out in 77. The American, not version.
Yeah, it was like 86.
That's crazy. So that makes it like completely unlike anything else that was happening at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it was kind of typical in Japan, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, this is a normal film.
Makes sense.
Ah, yes.
Okay, so you've had a wide array of choices here on your list. And I like, too, that you're going for these ones that aren't, like, super ultra well known. I mean, it's like we all love Halloween and stuff like that,
yeah.
obviously, but I like that you're going for some of these ones that might introduce some people to some flicks that they haven't seen before. So I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to hear your numero uno. What could it be?
I mean, this was a tough one. Really, really tough.
Yeah.
And, it was a runner-up between this and Jesus Camp.
Oh my God.
But,
Jesus Camp is utterly horrifying.
Yep.
but this one beat it out. And mostly it's because just really the last 20 minutes of the movie, I think, is probably some of the most terrifying things I've ever seen on camera. And that is Fire in the Sky.
Oh my goodness gracious. I think you showed me that movie the first time. It is utterly chilling.
Yeah.
It's like you said, the last 20 minutes of that movie, like a lot of the movie is kind of slow and kind of dull.
It's like a TV movie for the first part.
Right.
Yeah.
But then...
that's a good way to put it.
And then that last 20 minute kicks in and you're like, where the hell did I just end up? Like,
Dude,
Yeah.
it is utterly insane. Like, if anybody's listening to this and they like alien abduction stuff and things like that, UFO movies, it's easily the scariest depiction of aliens and an abduction that has ever been put to film.
Yeah.
Like, nothing even comes close, in my opinion.
No, I agree. It's completely terrifying. And the fact that it's even really still PG-13.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's brutal. Like, it's tough.
Oh, yeah. See, that's one that, like, I remember back in the day, whenever it came out and I was a kid and I wasn't allowed to watch any kind of movies like that, I remember seeing it advertised on TV, and I remember seeing the print ads in, like, my comic books and game magazines and stuff like that, and just always wondering what that movie was like or what it was about or anything like that.
Right.
And we watched it in probably when we were in college or just out of college. So, at that point I was in my 20s, mid-20s, and I was still just blown away.
Yeah.
Just blown away. It's like even all that, all the preparedness of all those years could not prepare me for how messed up the ending of that movie is.
Right.
Agreed.
It's also got Robert Patrick in it, who we talked about last week on the Terminator episode.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
That dude's good. I like that Robert Patrick.
Yeah.
Really underrated movie. Like, I don't meet a lot of people that have seen that.
Yeah. It's definitely one that is. I think it's because you didn't see it as a kid. It's one I saw as a kid, but it is like very jarring and sticks in your head, and definitely was a cause of extreme worry for me, because I did believe in aliens like abducting people at the time, and it was like, okay, so just avoid being outside at night, I guess, right?
I guess so. That's a great choice, and kind of like, again, kind of an underrated one to have up there as a number one, but it needs to be because people need to watch that movie,
Yeah.
Do you have any other, like, maybe honorable mentions that just kind of snuck their way off your list?
Well, I like
Jesus Camp.
Jesus Camp, obviously. I like to toss in, because I'm a huge Robin Williams fan, I think 1 Hour Photo is a
man.
horror film.
That is a disturbing movie.
Yeah.
It's the only horror film he did, I think, right? Or did he do something else?
Well, I guess straight horror. He did like a thriller called, I think, The Night Listener.
Oh, right, yeah. I remember that one, too.
I think Toys was really disturbing.
Oh, yes. That's a good, for
Toys
sure.
is pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
That's a weird movie.
Yeah.
I love Toys. It looks good, but it's weird.
It's very, very weird, man. Yeah, 1 Hour Photo. That's a good one, man. He is so believably creepy in that.
Yeah, and the worst part is you feel empathy for him.
Right.
It's sad, yeah.
And yet you're terrified of him at the same time.
Right.
So it's a good, well-layered horror film.
Right.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Any other noteworthy mentions you got?
People don't talk about this one a lot. Stir of Echoes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
With
I've never seen it.
Dude, I've seen that movie so many times. I saw it, and this was in a period when they used to sell a ton of like $5 VHSs because DVDs had come along. And so,
you get them cheap.
Yeah, I would just buy one every night after work of waiting tables, and I got Stir of Echoes, and I remember watching it, and the hypnotism scene just sold me on it immediately. Like where she's walking him through the hypnotism, and like she says that the entire theater is black, and it just like woof, and everything turns black. It's really cool.
It's really good. Kevin Bacon does a great job, and I have a fingernail phobia.
Oh yeah. Right.
I've heard people talk about there's a fingernail destruction scene in that movie that's grueling.
Yeah. So if you got fingernail phobias, tread lightly.
Right. Yeah.
Hide your wife, hide your kids.
Yep, hide them all.
You know, one that I was kind of expecting you to put on the list, Brandon, because it was one that you showed me back in the college days that you loved that I'd never seen before. Freaking Parents.
Oh, Parents is awesome.
It's on my list of 36.
I figured it would be.
It is. I figured
it would be.
It is on there.
That's a weird movie.
I love that movie, and I tossed it around for a long time. And obviously, the guy that wrote that movie is a well-known comedian and actor, Bob Balaban. If you've not seen it, definitely buy the Blu-ray. It's got a great commentary with Bob Balaban on there.
Oh, awesome.
And it's a recent commentary, just like, 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, cool.
So he even talks about it's the first time he's watched the film in many years. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, so he goes in depth to it. But yeah, super weird movie. And I caught that on my TV when I was a kid.
Oh, God.
And I was just like, hey, it's got Uncle Eddie in it. This will be good.
Yeah, exactly.
I rented it as a kid because the box looked funny. Because
it did.
Yeah. It was like, well, that guy's in Christmas Vacation. Like, this is probably funny. And yeah, it was one of those. I loved it as a kid, but it was because it scared me. I was like, oh, whoa, well, that is weird. What? I guess I don't want to spoil a movie that's that old, but it's just got such a good twist to it.
Yeah, and the 80s were also really good about the covers that go on the VHS, the movie posters.
Oh, that's how they got you, dude.
Yeah, the 80s had a lot of like dark comedies and dark satirical comedies, like the movie Neighbors.
Neighbors. I don't know if I've seen that one.
Yeah, Neighbors, John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd.
There we go.
Okay.
And they released this movie during Christmas, and it's just the darkest comedy. It's not what people were expecting. It's super dark. So the 80s were very good at that, and again, the cover art for it made you think, hey, this is going to be a comedy. It's got Dan Aykroyd and Belushi, and it's going to be funny. Ha ha ha, look at this playful cover. It's also come from the guy that directed and wrote Rocky.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So yeah, Neighbors. Check that one out if you're not seen it. It's pretty crazy.
Awesome. Any other honorable mentions you want to slip in?
Well, I'd feel bad if I did horror films and didn't at least mention one Takashi Miike film.
You got to.
I'd say that would probably go with Gozu.
Gozu. Now, you've shown me a lot of his flicks, and I think I've seen Gozu, but which one is it?
Yeah, Gozu stands for Cowhead.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I remember now. Now I remember the cover. Yeah, I remember now.
The boy wearing the cow head on his head.
I do not know this one. All right.
It's
I'll
weird.
have to check it out.
Yeah.
It sounds weird.
Yeah, super weird. I don't know how to... You can't describe the ending without spoiling anything crazy, but that ending and the practical effects used in that is terrifying and super creepy, and you've never seen anything like it on film before.
Dude, I think one of the movies that you showed me that creeped me out the most of anything, and most people don't even classify it as a horror movie, is Mulholland Drive.
Yes. I mean, the scene at the cafe alone sets it up as a horror movie.
In like the mud man out back and all that stuff.
Terrifying.
I think it's horror.
Slowly going around the corner. Yeah, definitely. Horror romance.
I don't know where else you'd put that movie, because like if you watch that and you're like, it's anything other than horror. Again, that's like a good Psycho Finder test movie.
Right.
You watch that movie and you're like, that was great. I really enjoyed the whole thing. It's like, so you're a maniac.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good list, Brandon.
Thanks, man.
You put together a solid bunch of movies that it sounds like I need to check out, and so do our dead and lovely listeners. So, yeah, sounds like I got some homework I need to be doing.
If people want to know, I can send Ben and them my 36, and y'all can read them, and they can post it wherever they want if you're curious.
Brandon, why don't you post that old list of 36 up over on the Facebook group at Dead and Lovely, by Facebook Dead and Lovely com. That's it, right?
It's Facebook.
That's exactly
Nailed it.
Facebook.com/dead and lovely.
That might work, too. I guess that'll work as well. Post it up on there. That way everybody can check them out and weigh in their opinions and stuff. Get to know you better. Come in and know me better, man.
Would be glad to.
And, of course, course, if you guys like this show, you guys can help support us on the Patreon. Steve, can they give us their money on Patreon?
Patreon.com/Dead and Lovely. For just $1 a month, you can get our Patreon exclusive episodes. We've done some Twilight Zone. We did an X-Files. We did a Simpsons Halloween special recently.
Yeah.
Fun stuff. So for just $1, you can do that. And if you're a $5 patron, you can submit a movie, and it might get randomly drawn once a month when we do our random Patreon drawing, and then we cover that movie.
Yay, you can control the show.
Take control.
So yeah, be sure to check that thing out, support the show, and join the Facebook group, all that other stuff. Join in the chat. But you know what, fellers? You know what, boys?
What?
I just feel like I need to sink my teeth into the meat of this podcast. I need to just get a hold of something juicy. I need to get some gristle
Let's do it.
around my gums and get to the subject of the episode, which is none other than Brandon's pick, the Changeling.
The Changeling.
Changeling. Which is, what is it, 1979 or 80?
80.
Yeah.
1980. An old flick here. This is one that I had never seen before. It features Scrooge and Haints and Boogers. He's dealing with all kinds of Haints and Boogers.
He do. Yeah, it's got that George C. Scott in it. I saw this as a kid and didn't like find it very impressive as a kid, but watching it now as an adult, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is first off good, second off extremely influential.
Oh my God, yes. I'd love if we could go back and get like a review with you back then with like little Steve, small town Steve he was called back then.
3 of 10, no boobies.
Needs more Haints and Boogers. Brandon, what was the first time you watched this movie?
Oh God, I was probably 7 or 8
Wow.
when I saw it, and I remember vividly my Uncle Carl recommended it.
Carl's a great uncle name, by the way.
It is.
It's a very uncle name, but Uncle Carl recommended it to me as a kid. I obviously knew I loved horror movies and everything, and the film is rated PG.
That's true.
Yeah, it's family friendly.
It is family friendly. So he did not feel bad recommending it to, although he did recommend Rocky Horror Picture Show, Beavis and Butthead, and South Park to me later on in life.
He's got a good moral compass on Uncle Carl.
And he took me to see Sleepwalkers, and I think I ran down to the theater in the first 10 minutes and went in to see Wayne's World instead.
Well,
I mean, not a bad move,
Yeah, that's a
honestly.
good
You were a young
move.
man of
Yeah.
discerning
Right.
taste, clearly.
This is true. But yeah, so I was probably about 7 or 8. My Uncle Carl recommended it to me. I think he probably let me borrow his VHS copy, and I watched it. And again, just like Steve, I saw it. I was, it was scary, but I don't think it didn't connect with me much. And I just remember as I grew up older, it's a movie that kept coming back in conversations or seeing on film boards, and I ended up just going back to it and like, oh man, this is well made. This is really good, very influential to other films that I enjoy. So I was like, this is good stuff. So yeah.
This is one of those movies where it's like your favorite horror movie's director, this is his favorite.
right.
Yeah. Well, it's also listed as Martin Scorsese's scary. He's listed as the scariest film that he's ever seen.
Yeah, he's got it on his top 11 list of scariest films. Yeah. I found this interesting that this is a Canadian film.
80?
Yet another Canadian film we've done that is extremely influential, but not talked about a ton.
Yeah.
That's true, other than being Black Christmas, right?
Yeah. This movie is Canadian and shot in Vancouver, despite the fact it's supposed to be Seattle. Does it snow a lot in Seattle, or where were they when they were in the snow? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, I'm not really sure where that was, huh? I didn't think about that. Yeah, they shot it in Vancouver and I think a little bit in Toronto, and I think there's like a few shots that were filmed in New York, maybe.
Maybe some exterior shots.
Yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, primarily a Canadian film, as they're known.
Yeah.
Film. And I had never seen this before. I didn't know anything about it. Like, leading up to this episode, I didn't even watch any trailers. I didn't read any reviews. I wanted to go into it totally clean slate, because this is one of those flicks that, like, has kind of been forgotten in a lot of ways.
Sure,
you don't really see it popping up on a lot of lists of, best horror flicks and most influential flicks, but it certainly needs to be on them, because whenever we watched this movie last night, it was the kind of thing where I felt like this movie had been made by like a time traveler that went in the future and watched so many of the movies that we grew up with and put those ideas in a movie in 1980.
Right.
Very, very crazy, but I loved it. I thought it was really fantastic. Like right from the get-go, we started watching this last night and we were both like, this is a great movie.
Yeah.
Brandon, what is it that made you choose this? Of all the horror movies that you could have chosen for this episode, what made you choose this one?
I think for the same reason how I did my horror list. Like I was just looking for something that, you know, that was really good, that is well respected usually within the horror community, but yet not talked about a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was really hard because I was like, I love to do another Takashi film, but I was like, I already did at least one episode of that. I was like, let's bring it down. So I was like, I just started like, looking up stuff and just searching because I can't remember everything that I've seen.
Right.
I mean, once I run across it, I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that. I remember that. So I just started searching through lists and just came across it. I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen this in a while. This was really good. I rewatched it. I was like, yeah, we got to do this one. This would be a good one. So, and then I found out you had that Ben hadn't seen it, and I was like, this is perfect. This is perfect.
Yeah, no kidding, man. And this is exactly up my alley too, because I love slow burn, atmospheric stuff that's not just overridden with, jump scares and CGI and crap like that. Like,
right.
This movie has a lot of the hallmarks of other flicks that I love, like The Shining and like The Others and House of the Devil. Like, I see so many of my favorite flicks taking stuff from this movie. What's some of the inspirations that you guys see that this movie lent to as far as like other flicks that it inspired?
Well, it's definitely The American Ring. I mean, you put Ringu and this together, you got The Ring for sure.
I think so too, yeah. And other than just, there's a well in both of them, I think that there's
so many elements. Yeah, like even his daughter's love of horses and stuff. That's added to Samara's character. Like, yeah, there's so many small things I saw that I was like, oh, I see. Like, and I'm not even I'm not even looking at this in a detrimental way as though like, oh, they're just ripping that off. I think they took a really good movie and just took little threads from it and put them into what also is a really good movie. Also The Others,
for sure.
Yeah,
that's the one that
Great
kept
movie.
coming up for me too. I mean, there's like very overt things, like the fact that it's ghost in a Victorian mansion and there's a seance and stuff like this, but it's even down to stuff where like the guy that's the groundskeeper for the house on this is like Mr. Tuttle. They named one of the groundskeepers in The Others Mr. Tuttle too.
Right, yeah.
It's like very overt homage. It's almost like the guy that did The Others watched this movie and I was like, what if I told this story from the perspective of the ghost?
Yeah.
And that's how that movie came about.
Yeah, it's
I wish
a
I
really
would have
cool
seen
idea.
this before we did our episode on The Others, actually.
We haven't done The Others.
We haven't?
No.
Sweet.
Yeah,
All
so
right,
we
then,
got that
problem
coming
solved.
up. Yeah, so awesome.
I just made my own best future.
Yes, you did. So yeah, those two for sure. I think it's got some stuff influences on a few other things, but like
The Conjuring and stuff.
The Conjuring for sure. But the thing is that The Conjuring is from Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were popular before this movie. So some of Ed and Lorraine Warren is going into this movie, and then some of this movie is going into The Conjuring. So it's definitely an influence, but also what the main influence is Ed and Lorraine Warren, I would assume, because they were popular paranormal investigators at the time, and this movie definitely paved the way for things like Ghostbusters. So like, because the way that George C. Scott is just like so immediate in his belief of like, oh, it's a spirit, and like, oh, we need a seance and all these things. Like, he just presents this idea of like, oh, you can be a rational person and believe in ghosts.
Yeah.
And then the next step is, okay, well, if rational people are believing in ghosts, what if they bust them?
I was going to say, I like to think about Dan Aykroyd watching this in the theater and being like, would have been better if you would have busted that kid.
Yeah,
that kid needed busting.
You really should have trapped him in some sort of device.
Spare the bust, spoil the child, they always say. Yeah, for sure. I think it definitely influenced those. And, there's a lot of other things that came out around this same time period that I would like to say it influenced, but I don't know who did it first. Like, this movie came out the same year as The Shining, and they both feature a ominous rolling ball.
There's a good bit of, like, I would say, like, Stephen King to this, but it's not possible that they stole from them, because, like, there's some bit that I would say maybe comes from Dead Zone, like, especially the politician angle. But Dead Zone is after this, it actually came out, I think, 6 months before this, which would make it impossible that it influenced this, because the script would already be done. And then also, Pet Sematary seems maybe to take that scene a bit, like, because I know that Stephen King has said that he had a dream of his son getting hit by something, and that's what inspired it. But, like, the visual way we see it in Mary Herron, is that who directed? I can't remember.
Mary Lambert.
Mary Lambert, right. Yeah, Mary Lambert's, the way they show it in that is so reminiscent of this
similar
film, yeah.
And, dude, that's one of the things about this movie that blew both of us away when we were watching it last night. It wastes no time. This movie comes in way hot.
Yeah.
Like, in the intro, it's just like, happy family in the snow pushing the car.
Yeah.
Boom, they're all dead.
He really is just like, it's like, here's a gorgeous, gorgeous family. They're so happy. Dad,
having a snowball fight. Just
dude. Oh my gosh, man. Like, it was the kind of thing where it happened so suddenly and out of nowhere that, you know, we paused it so we could rewatch it.
Yeah.
And we paused it and we're like 2 minutes into this, including credits. And we're already like rewinding parts to watch again because they were so shocking. The way that wreck is filmed is really great. Like, I love how you can see the big truck in the distance as he's on the phone. Mm-hmm. You see the car pulling out on the other side of the road. It's like these two elements that are just like fated to hit each other on this icy road. You see it coming. And, like, you're there with George C. Scott going, no, just like trying to stop it.
Yeah.
It's very well filmed.
Yeah.
And it's also impressive, too, that as brutal as it is, not gory.
No,
not at all.
It's all in the editing. Mm-hmm. Very you'll hear us say it a lot throughout the episode, I'm sure, but very Hitchcockian in the editing.
Right.
And, I mean, it's definitely inspired by Psycho, and definitely, I mean, if the editor's not a fan of Psycho, then I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I would definitely be shocked by that for sure. The movie is shot beautifully. I think it's a really awesome movie. I like the fact that it's not super polished. It's got that, like,
70s
gritty
feel to
70s
it.
look. Yeah, totally, man. And that just kind of makes that old decrepit house seem even more decrepit and even more dark. And, like, the scenes where he's, like, walking up the stairs to that secret room and stuff, they're so dark that you're like, I can barely see what's going on, but that's also what he's seeing too.
Right. Yes. Yeah, it's a really good representation of his experience too. Yeah, I think that it looks gorgeous in as you said, a grimy way. Like, the you see this, like, mansion in the distance, but it's also covered in this sort of, like, ivy, and the driveway is mud. It's like, there's, like, just some grossness to it all.
And really, that house that we're talking about is just like how we talked about in The Shining and other flicks like this that take place mainly in one location. That house is a character to itself. In this movie.
Yeah, it's definitely got, like, it moves, it talks sort of with its noises and stuff. Yeah, the house is very animated.
And one thing that I really like about the way that they portray the character of the house and stuff too is even some of the earliest shots that you get of whenever he's walking in and checking out the house. We get a lot of those shots that are looking down from the stairwell.
Right.
And at first when you watch it, you're like, that was just a cool creative choice to show how big this house is. But then you go back and you realize, oh, that was like ghost vision.
Yeah, that was the that was the kid's ghost watching him, right? And as the medium says, because he's experienced that loss, he's open to the spirit. So it's like the kid sees he can actually use this guy.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I kind of got out of this, too, is that it was the fact that he himself had gone through such a loss in his own life that he was, he had the sensitivity, so to speak, to be in touch with his spirit and help it out. I think that's something that the spirit of the kid kind of sensed and knew. And that's why, other tenants had just, I guess, run off.
Right, yeah, whereas, because the kid didn't want him there. So
Yeah.
but he's actually able to hear the kid once he listens to the recording. Like, he can really like attune himself to it.
And maybe that's too. It's like that's part of his way of dealing with the grief of of the loss of his own family. It's like he's just trying to put something together and solve something.
Yeah.
Considering how just senseless and out of nowhere the death of his family was.
Right.
I think also what helps drive him is the fact that he couldn't save his own family because he was trapped in the telephone booth.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get out to save his own family, so he sees this as opportunity to try to save somebody and fix a problem that he wasn't able to fix prior. So I think it also helps give him some motivation.
I think so too, man. I think so too. That's exactly how I felt about it. And I even kind of think too, one of the things we kind of talked about when we were setting up the episode there is the way that he does have this readiness to believe in ghosts. Like, at no point in there is he ever like, I don't believe in boogers.
Nope. No, he is convinced well ahead of time, and it's presented in the film like it's just a logical, sort of normal thing. Like, he has the seance without like any hesitation. He believes what goes on in it. There's no cynicism. He's not looking for looking
under the table.
Right.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He's totally bought into it. So
And he's not scared of it.
Not scared of it at all. Yeah.
Well, because here's the thing to me that I was kind of thinking about too, as a person who has just experienced that kind of loss of his daughter and his wife just out of nowhere, and I love too that the movie shows him grieving. It's like the alarm goes off at 6 a.m.
and he's just been crying.
Just crying. Yeah, he's not like a stoic, like, I'm a man, I'm never sad about nothing. Like, no. It shows us that, his private life, he's still very much grieving. But if you think about it too, I think that his readiness and willingness to accept the possibility of the spiritual realm, to him, isn't scary. That's probably more hopeful than anything, because that means that it wasn't the end of his family's lives.
Right, yeah.
The potential of ghosts means that his family is still out there somewhere living on in the next life.
Yeah.
And I would think that he would see that as a hopeful thing more than a scary thing.
Yeah, that's how he's presented for sure, that he sees this as a good, positive thing that goes throughout there. And
George C. Scott just crushes in this movie.
He does.
And I gotta admit, like, for somebody that says that they like movies and stuff like that, I'm actually pretty undereducated in a lot of areas, because I think the only other movie I've seen with him is freaking Christmas Carol. To me, he is Ebenezer Scrooge.
Huh. So you haven't seen Dr. Strangelove?
Never seen it.
What?
I know, right? What's the matter with me?
That you gotta see that. I mean,
Strangelove,
yeah, because Patton can be seen if you want to, but Strangelove is a definite.
See, I didn't even know he was in it.
Yeah, he's great in it. He's hilarious in it. Yeah,
he was the voice of McLeach in The Rescuers Down Under as well.
Also,
no kidding.
Old bad guy.
Are there some other classic roles of his that I should definitely watch to educate myself?
Those are the three I wrote down, actually. The three you mentioned, Dr. Strangelove, Patton, and A Christmas Carol. Those are the ones I think of the most with him. Are there any you can think of, Brandon?
Well, I know people talk about his role in Exorcist 3 a lot.
Right, yeah.
Which I haven't seen, but I heard
I haven't either.
He does a good job. He was also in Firestarter.
Yes, with Drew Barrymore, right.
Yeah, but Dr. Strangelove is definitely, I think,
that's numero uno.
His top. There's no beating that. It's pretty amazing.
Even in that movie, it's black and white, right? Like, it was way before this, wasn't it?
It is black and white, but it wasn't way before this, I don't think.
Okay.
It was actually intentionally shot in black and white, though color was available.
Yeah.
So they filmed it when he was a spry 75 years old, right? Because he's one of those guys that's just always ancient in movies.
Yeah.
Strangelove was 64.
64, there you go. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, he was maybe 74 at that point.
Exactly.
He's one of those guys that's just always super old.
Yeah, for sure. It's him and Trish Van Devere in this, and Trish Van Devere is his wife. They had been married for 8 years at this point. They were in a few movies together, and they were actually together until his death in 1999, when he was 300 years old. It says right here. It's right there on the Wikipedia.
What a life.
Yeah.
He had a good long run, huh?
Yeah. This is directed by Peter Medic, and that is very much worth mentioning because this is specifically for Kate. He directed a whole bunch of episodes of Fairy Tale Theater.
Oh, Fairy Tale Theater's awesome.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He also directed the Washingtonians episode of Masters of Horror, which is a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he went on to direct a good bit of TV, but like you look at his credits and they're like the best TV shows, like The Wire, Breaking Bad, Hannibal, just
Home Improvement.
He did actually direct an episode of House, so
There we go. Tie-in.
yeah. But yeah, so he was the third director, though. The first two directors left because they couldn't work with the producers, I guess, creative differences, and they brought in Peter Medic, and he had about a month to prepare script rewrites and get sets built.
You know, I bet the way that they got this done is they were sitting around the script and they were going, oh my gosh, this thing is a mess. It could really use a doctor or a medic. Medic. Is there a medic in the house?
Right? Am I right, guys? Anyone? Anyone?
Oh,
No.
Ooh, that's a knee slapper. That is a knee slapper right there.
Yeah.
Listen, that's me slapping my knee. You're welcome.
So, yeah, but I mean...
that wasn't your knee, Ben.
It wasn't my knee. No, it was not my knee.
So yeah, he came in and as I said, not a lot of time to turn it around, but he obviously nailed it. I mean, it looks great, and I'm surprised they did those sets in under a month.
See, that's the thing that blows my mind, is the fact that that house wasn't a house.
Right, the exterior is a house, but that's not where they shot.
Well, the
Yeah.
exterior is a facade. Like, they just built the exterior of the house around a more modern house.
Right.
Yeah.
And then all the stuff you see inside is sets. That's mind-blowing to me
Yeah.
because you never feel like it. Like, most of the time in movies, whenever something is shot as, you know, a house on a set, it feels like it. Like, even, like Hereditary, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like the walls were placed in such a way to allow certain camera angles and
Right.
stuff, which plays into the dollhouse narrative
Right.
of that movie, too. But with this movie, I don't know, Brandon, did it ever feel like a set to you, or did it just feel like a house?
No, it really did feel like a house. And I mean, that's something that, especially in older movies, you know, I don't mind. I don't mind if it looks and feels like a set. Sometimes it's on purpose and it's an aesthetic choice. And, but in this, no, none of it seems like a set at all.
No.
Like, as big as a character as the house is,
Right.
you would think that it would come across more as a set than it would be.
Right.
And I think the other kind of like unlisted cast member that really makes this movie is definitely the sound design
Oh
and the
my
soundtrack.
gosh.
100%.
Man.
Absolutely incredible.
Sound design is great.
They build the atmosphere and the tension
Yeah.
extremely well. Like, dude, I think if I just heard a random soundbite of the tub thumping, there's some tub thumping in this movie, y'all.
Oh.
Tough on that.
And it's not the fun kind.
No, not exactly as fun as having, you know, a whiskey drink or a cider drink,
Right.
singing the songs, remind you of the sad times. Yeah, this is about a kid getting drowned in a bathtub. Not quite as fun.
Not quite as fun. Still on the fun side
A
of
handicapped
things.
kid being drowned in a
yeah.
bathtub.
What if
Poor.
we found out that was actually like the deleted third verse of Tub Thumping?
Yeah.
Killing a crippled kid.
You take a whiskey drink? You take a vodka drink? Oh, no. So, all right. So, because we're talking about that, we should talk about the concept of the changeling because it ties into that. The changeling in a lot of old mythology and folk tale was the fairies would come in and replace a human baby with a fairy baby. And one of the things that was an indication that you had a changeling was that the child became sickly. Now,
Okay.
they believe that, you know, folklorists and people that work on this believe that probably is an invention that they came up with to excuse infanticide for when, you know, say you're working to feed a whole big family and then you have a baby that needs all of your time, but you can't give it all of your time. You can just maybe excuse it away as, well, it's a fairy baby, so we can get rid of it.
That old ultra late term abortion.
Right. Yes, which was a lot more common than we like to believe in the past.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this is actually playing with that. I like that it's playing with that concept a little bit, because again, in the 70s, the expectation of doing deep research wasn't really there. So either that's just coincidental, or it is playing specifically with the idea of like infanticide and the child being replaced, in this case, by a healthy version of the unhealthy child.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, because it kind of takes the myth and puts it into a
real world
life context. Yeah, I was really wondering more about the whole like changeling mythology and stuff that you're talking about, because there's also like the Angelina Jolie movie that was called The Changeling, but that's not related to this, is it? Right,
but actually the two have a similar sort of opposite premise, like I was saying, where a child is being replaced by a healthy version. In The Changeling, this is a true story. Angelina Jolie's character's child is kidnapped, perhaps, goes missing, and the police, a kid hears the story and gets on a train and goes to Los Angeles and pretends to be her missing child. And then the police make her take the child home, even though she's saying that's not my child, and eventually put her in a mental institution because she refuses to take care of the child they are insisting is hers. What we find out later, in reality, is that the child most likely was killed by a serial killer that was caught.
Wow.
Yeah.
Directed by Clint Eastwood.
And Angelina Jolie is really good in it. It's worth watching.
Dang, you ever seen that, Brandon?
Yeah, it's been a long time. I actually, weirdly enough, I don't remember liking it, but again, it's been a long time, so things change when you go back and rewatch stuff, so I don't know. Yeah,
it's because it's a true story. I think it was one of those I was watching in a time. I watched Iron-Jawed Angels around the same time. I was studying, this was in grad school, I was studying that era specifically of like how women were being treated, like they're just like so many specific instances of like this, them telling a woman that a child that isn't her child is her child. Like, just like, no, this is your child, deal with it. Like, what?
I remember it coming out. That's when I was working at Blockbuster all the time. And so the trailers that they play for that movie all the time had a clip in it where Angelina Jolie had a line where it was like, give me back my child, or give me my real child. And every time it would play, I kept thinking of Mel Gibson going, give me back my son.
Get off my plane.
Yeah, I could never disassociate the two.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, all of the ghostly atmosphere in this leads to some really memorable scenes, because the fact is that this is a pretty slow burn movie, but whenever things get intense, whenever the weirdness gets ramped up, it leads to some extremely scary and memorable scenes. Brandon, what's some of the scenes in this movie that really stand out to you as some of the ones that, you know, have burned themselves into your memory?
Well, I mean, easily that's the drowning scene with the bathtub.
Oh my gosh, man!
Like, I rank it up there with, like, I mean, it's like Fire in the Sky ending type.
Yeah.
Just creepy.
Yeah.
And it's, again, goes back to the sound editing and the editing itself and how they shot it, and it's brutal. The close-ups of the hands, the use of the slow motion and the sound, it's just piercing in your ears, and then you get a close-up of the face in the water, and then cut to the wide shot holding the feet, and you're just like, this is just cruel. Absolutely cruel. And it's hard to watch, especially since it's a kid, and you're just like, it's just terrifying. And you're not seeing, there's no blood, there's no stabbing or anything like that, and there's no even like holding a face down. It's just showing that this crippled boy is being held by his legs, and he has got no way out. It's like ultimate claustrophobia.
Yeah, no kidding, man. And well, also too, just like knowing that, because of the way that he is crippled, it's like he absolutely cannot fight back. Like his legs don't even work. You know?
Yeah, he's stuck.
It's crazy too, because it's one of those scenes that in your memory is way more graphic than what's actually on the screen. Like, if you go and watch
it's clever editing,
It's clever editing, absolutely so. Because, like, you watch it, And it's so shocking and out of nowhere. And later on, you're like, I guess they killed a kid to make this movie.
That was my exact thought. Just like with Opera, with the stabbing through the lower part of the mouth there. It looks so real. It's like, I guess they just killed that guy. I was watching this. I was like, how did they do that to that kid? Like, watching it again the second time, I was like, oh, I see this in the editing. Like, he probably only had his head underwater for half a second when they got one shot. Yeah. That was all they needed. But that, again, is just a testament to how good the editing is, because you just get sold on it. Like, that looks wrong.
Well, here's what you don't know about it, though. There's actually a vast web of conspiracy, and it's just hidden in plain sight. This movie's called The Changeling. You were talking about infanticide, replacing kids with other kids and stuff. A guy was actually really just that sick of his kid and is like, I need a good way to kill this kid.
I'll write a script.
Let's build a movie around it. It's actually a snuff film.
The original name was The Dad Who Was a Hero.
Yeah. They're like, a little too obvious. Yeah, they definitely killed a kid for that. Yeah, it's so shocking. It's something that I like about that scene too, Brandon, is like, in terms of the pacing and the timing of that, it's pretty much right after the seance scene, which is weird enough.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, like, that's a beat. It'll be a little while before there's another, big scary beat in the movie. But it's kind of right after it.
Yeah.
He's going back and listening through the tape, and he hears that super creepy child voice on the tape. Oh, my God, man. And that's one of those things that, I've said it on the show many times, like, little kids saying creepy stuff is one of the lamest things ever in a horror movie for me. It never works. It's never scary. Like, children singing creepy songs never does anything for me. But there's something about the delivery and, like, this, again, the sound design, even the way they recorded that kid saying, just those little sentence fragments that he says. He sounds so just hopeless.
Yeah. And he's got such a weak voice, like, you really get, like, just the pathetic element of it. I think you're right. Like, the way they did it, and maybe it works specifically because it doesn't lean on the voice to be scary. Like, the voice is giving us information. Like, we're not necessarily, it's eerie, and it does have that, like, hair on the back of your neck sort of stand on in. Like, it definitely has that to it, but it's not supposed to scare you. Mm-hmm. And whenever they do that, that's when it's kind of cheesy, because why are we just supposed to be scared just because some kids are singing? Like,
yeah, totally, man. And I like, too, like, the way that he just speaks in those little, like, 1 and 2 word fragments when he's like, body wet, the well, my metal. Like, it almost gives me the impression that he's having to, like, really exert himself to even get any words out beyond the spiritual realm or something. Like, I love that. I think it makes it so much creepier.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Steve, you got any spooky scenes that kind of stand out for you in this movie?
Spooky scenes. So, for me, the more spooky parts are what's going on with the politician, because we actually don't get a full view of that conspiracy. We know the truth of it, but, like, Mrs. Norman gives them that story early on, which is, like, basically her misdirecting them to cover up for this senator who was the child who replaced the drowned child. Like, to me, that's all scary, because you see this, like, you see these very real world things in motion. Like, he controls the police. And like he's presented not necessarily as a bad guy. It just, like, gives us this view of, like, all politicians kind of have way too much power. So a lot of that was scary to me. The particular scenes, though, with the kid, I would say definitely, even though I would have acted differently, the wheelchair chase scene.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Dude,
like,
that's awesome.
It works. Like, I get that, like, she shouldn't be running downstairs, but it's like, what else do you do? Like, do you fight the wheelchair?
Dude, get out with that wheelchair, yeah. Just punching that wheelchair.
Yeah. So, like, there were a few things I thought you might try, but each one of them I was like, whatever is pushing that could probably still exert some force against you, and I just, get away is it.
I think if I was being chased by a chair, though, I would just assume it was a really lonely chair that wanted somebody to sit in it. I would just like, I'd be like, come on up, big guy, grab a seat in that thing. It's probably like, yay, this is what I was born to do.
This is all that gives me joy.
Put your butt in me. Yeah.
Put your butt in me. Yep.
I mean, who's never said that at some point in their life, right? Put your butt in me.
Yep.
Famous last words.
Yep.
Famous, yeah. Yeah, she kind of gets bowled down those stairs.
Yeah.
And then it kind of starts to go back for round two, it looks like.
Yeah, she's like, I'm going to go back up these
I
stairs.
haven't had enough of the wheelchair, so I'm going to go back up.
That's when George C. Scott comes back. He's like, why are you trying to go back upstairs?
Yeah, that's back
the
off.
The wheelchair is over here in the floor.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But maybe in her mind, she's thinking, hey, wheelchairs can't go upstairs.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
That's a good
yeah.
maybe.
It's like, well, once I've got it down here, now I can go. She could have just done that in the first place. Once she went down the first set of stairs, she's going to climb
it.
the banister and then jump back on the stairs and come back up.
I like how this show is like, it's evolved
Claire.
into a discussion on wheelchair fighting tactics. How to beat a wheelchair, Volume 1.
Volume 1, yeah. It goes well into the 30s in volumes. Yeah. I thought that scene was really effective, though. It really works.
Yeah, all those parts where he's going up to the secret room up there in the attic, and there's like all the immense amount of cobwebs and stuff.
Yeah.
All that was really crazy. And then, honestly, one of the parts of the movie that blew my mind the most is whenever he goes up there and he opens up that music box and it's playing the song that he himself just wrote.
Okay, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That is the most eerie scene, yes.
Yep.
And the seance did too. I'm going to say this is one of the best
Seance
movie
scenes?
seances ever
Yeah.
because it's played so ordinary.
Stuff isn't flying everywhere, like the table's not like going crazy, but you do still get some like manifestations, like the glass getting thrown across the room and all that. So it works more effectively when it's minimal like that.
Yeah, and two, like I like that they didn't play up the medium that's kind of running the seance. Like she's not like an old crone
Right.
with one milky
Yes.
eye,
Yeah.
and you know what I mean. Like she's just a normal person,
Yeah.
and all the people are like, "Yeah, this is what we do." I hold the paper and put the pencil in her hand while she does the automatic writing, and
Yeah.
it's all presented. I would imagine how a normal seance is.
Yeah, I think they were going a bit for Lorraine Warren with that. Because, again, like the Warrens, despite the fact that I know that they were scamming a whole bunch of people, they did present themselves logically and try not to be, like, overly
Miss Cleo?
crazy with people. Yeah, because they knew that wouldn't sell. Like, the more logical you are, the more you're going to convince people. Yeah. And so the way she just is matter of fact about everything. She's not Zelda Rubinstein in Poltergeist, where she's like the comic book superhero type of person. She just shows up, does that, and then that's it. Like, she's not even part of the rest of the story.
So there's not really a ton of special effects shots in this movie. It's really just a lot of very subtle things, like doors opening and closing,
or
and
a
things
ball
like that.
bouncing down the stairs. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's one of the parts that really freaked me out too. I didn't know that was from this movie.
Yeah.
I guess I got overshadowed by the other 1980 ball rolling down a carpet movie.
There
that
may
came
have
out
been
that
another
year.
one, right?
Yeah, but that scene where he goes and tosses it off the bridge and it comes back rolling down the stairs as soon as he's home and it's wet. Like, dude, that's a practical effect that cost 50 cents.
Yeah, the ball.
And it's so convincing. I do wonder what their fishing line budget was for the movie. That was probably through the roof.
Just so much.
Pulling all them doors and
we
stuff.
spent
open.
upwards of $100 on fishing line.
That's impossible. But one of the biggest effect shots we get that was really memorable to me is the fire racing down the banister towards the end of the movie. What do you guys think about the end of this flick? Because it seems to confuse a lot of people.
That was the main thing that was driving me nuts, because I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, okay, I understand that the senator is in his house and they were cutting away to him walking in the house, and this is just a projection. I was like, I get it. And then they wheel the body out, and I was like, hold on a minute. Is he being wheeled out? Like, that's how I perceived it. And
of the burnt down mansion.
Right.
Yeah.
right. And then I was very confused, and then just started to discuss it.
They're rolling him out of his home that he died in.
Yeah.
But it is kind of confusing.
It
because
is.
It just shows the burnt down house, then them collecting his body. It makes you think, was his body actually there in the house fire?
Right, yeah. And the houses are both just huge mansions that look pretty similar. So yeah, like, but what happens there is that they leave the burning house and drive to the senator's house, and it's the senator being pulled out of his house after he died in his office that we're seeing when we see the ambulance. So
yeah,
despite that is some confusion there. Just it's weird. I looked at it again right before we started recording, and the way it's put together, it's a little unclear. But yeah, so it's definitely the senator's house there.
I got the impression that he was doing some like astral projection or like a remote viewing kind of thing, because that was sort of hinted at earlier on in the movie too. There's that part where George is in the house and he looks in that mirror and it shatters,
and then he sees the kid get drowned. Yeah.
Well, no, it's when he sees the detective in the car.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he's seeing kind of like the windshield through the mirror that he's looking at.
Yeah.
So that kind of like shows us that I guess the kid can maybe somehow make people remote view things from great distances or astrally transport them to other places.
Yeah.
It's not really spelled out all that well,
it's
which
not.
I like.
I like that a lot too. The world that we're introduced to is just basically a world where a lot of these paranormal phenomena that were popular around the time just exist, and there's no need to explain them.
Yeah. So I like that. So whenever I saw, the senator walking up those burning stairs, which is such a cool visual, man. Because you see George C. Scott see him walking up the stairs too, and he's like, what is he doing here?
Right, yeah.
He's going up there because it's nice and warm.
Yeah, that's the best place to go if a house is on fire. You want to get to the top because that's where the heat's escaping, so that's where you escape, right?
Yeah, I think that's how it works.
Okay, yeah. The flames will push you out.
Really cool. Like, I thought the ending was really neat, but I can see how it would be confusing to a lot of people.
We need to talk about how this is supposedly based on a true story that Russell Hunter, playwright, says he experienced staying in the Chessman Mansion, or the Chessman Park Mansion in Denver, Colorado in the 60s. Now, the claim that he gives is almost exactly the story. He says he found a hidden doorway in his house that led to an attic where he found a diary of a child and some school books and things like that, which is, basically what happens in this. And then that also, they had a seance, and that he learned that the child was dead and buried under a well, and that they then went to the house that was over top the well and found the body. That sounds a lot like this movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, people have investigated this, and it is not true. This did not happen.
What?
Yeah.
Impossible.
It's not true. It's good. I mean, that's good salesmanship on the part of Russell Hunter, though. I think he was definitely, as I said, this is building on Lorraine and Ed Warren. Like, this is really building on just a feeling around the time and a popularity of like haunted houses and stuff. The thing is, saying it's a true story kind of diminishes how creative the story he came up with is. Like, he came up with this. If it was a true story, it's like, wow, that's wild. But he actually just invented all this, and it's like, well, that's really creative. Like, take credit for it.
Yeah, he gets a gold star for creativity, even if it was an outright lie.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research about the whole like Cheeseman Park or whatever it's called in Denver, and it was like formerly a big cemetery, and like a fancy neighborhood nearby got upset about it, and they're like, move the bodies. So they moved the bodies, but they didn't move all the bodies. And there was apparently some hauntings around the area and stuff like that. But again,
that's his story.
Who knows, really? Yeah.
I was reading on the Denver Public Library website. They have a few different articles on it where they've done the investigations. Like the couple that built the mansion there, like, it was just a normal lot, and they built a mansion on it, and they lived there, and they died. They didn't have kids. That was it.
Well, ultimately, though, at the end of the day, and this is like the best song by the Smiths or Morrissey that never got released, ultimately, The whole world is a cemetery.
Whoa. Mine.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So really, I don't know how like relevant that is to hauntings and stuff like that anyway, right?
Yeah. But yeah, this story is just so well done. It doesn't matter if that story is true or not.
Wait,
Yeah.
it's well done. Did you do that on purpose? Look at that.
But
well, like the well in this movie.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Those scenes were super freaky
Yes,
too,
they
by
were.
the way.
Yeah, because it's like, can you believe that lady let those people come in and cut up her floor?
Those beautiful hardwood floors.
That goes back to the, like, as a matter of fact. Hey,
Yeah.
knock, knock. There might be a dead boy's
Yeah.
bones in your basement. Can
And she
I
just
come and
buys
check?
it. Yep.
Sure. Come on in.
Yeah, that's this world. This world, that is just normal type of stuff. So,
Yeah.
Try and do that in 2020.
No doubt. Well, that's the thing in this movie too, where like there were several times in this where I was just like, all right, privileged old white guy.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of that scene, after they dig up this kid's bones from under this house, the cops are like, how did you know the kid would be here? And he's seriously just like, I don't know.
yeah. Then
And nothing happens.
finds a piece of evidence and then keeps it and then runs onto a private jet, runs toward a private jet a senator is boarding, and all the people do is just stop him and turn him back towards his car. No arrest. Nobody is like, obviously take him down. Everybody's just like, okay, let him have his say, and then turn him around and take him back to his car.
It's okay. It's not a gun. It's a necklace.
Yeah. Don't worry, he's an
okay.
old white guy. It's fine. He lives in a mansion.
Just selling some jewelry. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Nothing to it right there. Oh, man. Yeah, when he does that and he shows the senator the birth medal and stuff, and we see the senator has, like, the same birth medal around his neck.
Yeah.
It kind of got me wondering, did the senator know the whole time that he was the swap? I mean, because the thing is they say that, you know, the kid died when he was, like, 6,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You have memories of when
Yes,
you were
you
6,
definitely
right?
do. You definitely do. I think it is because of the conspiracy I was talking about with Miss Norman and the cops and stuff. I think it is something that he knows. Maybe he knows enough about that he wants to cover it up, but he hasn't investigated it fully because it does seem like he's learning things.
Yeah, Brand, do you think it seems like he knew the whole time?
Yeah, I think he knew, but he didn't want to accept it, obviously. But also, I'm almost certain that when you get to that part of the movie, I think that's the first time in the film you really leave Jorsey Scott's perspective.
Yeah, that's true.
And it
yeah.
goes into the airplane with the senator.
Right, yeah, and we see what's going on with him.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on it, but even when I went back and rewatched it the other day, when it cuts to the senator inside the plane, it felt very weird because I was like,
Yeah.
we're away from our main character, and it doesn't seem like the screen's really left him the whole movie.
Right.
Yeah.
But the scene is I think, still important.
Yeah, he seems pretty shook.
Yeah, and I think it's still appropriate to be there, but it's still a very interesting choice.
Do you think it's possible? Because the only other perspective we see is the boys.
The boy.
You think it's possible that he is there, like he's watching the reaction? Like he does seem to be able to have some presence or knowledge of what's going on outside the house.
Oh, huh. So you're saying whenever we see inside the plane, we're seeing Ghost Boy view.
He's seeing how the guy reacts, basically. Like maybe if it had been a positive reaction where he's like, oh no, I did not know this, like the ghost wouldn't have had to kill the cop and stuff.
Yeah, because if the kid can see him at the end and know the conversation going on, at least, then I mean, sure, he had to know the conversation going on during the plane.
It would seem that way, yeah. So maybe that explains it.
Is the senator a bad guy?
He doesn't.
Like, did he deserve to die at the end of the movie? And did that, absolve anything or make anything better? It seems like the Changeling kid's dad is the one that's really the bad guy here, but he's dead by the time the movie starts.
Well, I don't know. He's an old white guy in the 80s as a politician, so maybe...
Yeah, I'm sure he's done some bad stuff.
Maybe he deserved to die.
Yeah. They were all heroes. I don't know what you're talking about.
So, yeah, but yeah, you're right. His death is like, why does that have to happen at the end? I think it might have maybe been even better if he survived and was like, oh, I should do something about this, and somehow like fixed it or tried to fix it, establish some monument to the child. You know how we all learn history from statues.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Could have made a statue of the boy. I don't know. Like he maybe there could have been a different ending. I don't know that dying was. Yeah, he definitely didn't deserve to die, but he is also shown as just being old, so maybe it was like...
just his time to go.
Yeah, and also he died that night. What?
In an unrelated note, he died in his sleep.
Just fade to black, and it says, the senator passed away of natural causes.
See you at the crossroads.
And then a French guy just shows up on screen smoking a cigarette, and he's like, "C'est la vie, huh?"
How like life, this film. Now, Brandon, one element that did surprise me here, especially considering when this was made and how they were writing a lot of roles and stuff back then, I was really surprised to not see any romance develop between George C. Scott and, what's her name, Claire, in this movie. Do you think that adding a romantic element would have brought anything to this, or do you think that it was good the way they left it?
I think it's good the way they left it, because honestly, his whole motivation is solely on the loss of his family and his wife and kid, and you take that away and you start incorporating some sort of love interest, then that's another motivation going a different way. And I don't think he had any interest at all in love, but solving and saving a life that he couldn't previously save.
It's the kind of thing that they could have added in, but I don't think it would have made it any better.
Wouldn't improve it at all, no.
What do you think about the character of Claire?
Yeah,
Not a lot to her.
She's kind of like what's her name from Temple of Doom?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Marianne.
Yeah, just screaming and needing help all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. She's so easy to cry in this that it's like. I just don't know. Like, she's the only one in this world that seems shocked by ghosts ever.
Yeah, if they remade it today, they would have to get Julianne Moore to play it, because
she always be crying.
Cries and everything. She's great at it. Wonderful actress.
She's amazing, dude.
Yeah.
The old crying Julianne Moore, she's known as.
But I still think Trish Van Devere does a good job in this, and they did give her more of, I think, a sidekick role, which is, as we said, there's no like love interest going on. So because of that lack of love interest, she has a sidekick sort of role, and the fact that she keeps going with it does show her as sort of like strong.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not going to ever argue that she is a feminist icon in this, but she's not absolutely weak, but she does, immediately devolve into screaming and crying a lot.
Getting chased by chairs, just like women's prone
She's
to.
No Ellen Ripley.
And it's true, chairs can smell the female pheromones, and they just chase
them down.
Yep.
Yeah, so overall, she's not a super strong character, but I mean, considering this is really all about George C. Scott and his whole, quest.
Right.
I don't think that it really detracts from the movie, but yeah, definitely. There's apparently going to be a remake of this, I've heard.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah. I hope that they play her up better.
Yeah, I would like to see her with a little bit more strength, but also, like, I think that, you could easily, if you do a remake, fall into doing exposition too much. Like, this, as we've said, doesn't reveal a lot, but it also does have a big exposition dump.
I was going to ask you guys about that. The whole tale of what happened is kind of like coming together piece by piece, and then we have that scene where George and Claire meet, and it seems like George has just suddenly put
everything
all the pieces
together.
What did you think of that, Brandon? Is that like a smooth thing to you, or did you feel like that was just a big info dump?
It does feel like a big info dump. And I mean, I think that also goes back to the time period where it was made, where,
right.
There was a lot of exposition dumping in a lot of films especially in the 70s, and this just came out in the 80s. So this is pretty much still that typical style, which, I relate a lot of this film to Gene Hackman's The Conversation and Brian De Palma's The Blowout.
I've never seen either of those. I feel like I've been saying this the whole episode. I've never even seen that. I've never seen a movie.
Just great movies, wonderful editing, but there are times in all three of these movies where you have kind of exposition dumping, where I guess nowadays they get a little bit more creative, or they usually put that annoying sidekick character there to be the audience.
Yeah, and we get it earlier in the movie usually than we get it here. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, the way he puts everything together too is like just it does seem too quick.
Yeah, I actually had to go back and rewind it like 2 times to catch everything. I mean, I'm also like a real idiot with keeping up with people's names and family trees and movies, so that's also partially me. But yeah, that scene finished and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
How did he figure out all that stuff and put together those pieces? We didn't even get to see him with the big map with a bunch of pieces of red string and thumbtacks all over it, right?
But we did get a really good, like some good research scenes, like with microfiche and everything.
Yeah. Oh, it's not a 70s movie without microfiche, dude.
No,
I loved it, man. And then also the way they shot it kind of reminded me of The Ring. I think The Ring, they kind of, I mean, they went for that like green tone throughout with The Ring, but when she's in the archives watching that video, it's similar sort of shot setup.
One thing that kind of threw me off too in the movie as far as some of the exposition goes is it seems like there was maybe somewhat of a red herring or just sort of a dangling plot line with another kid that died that got hit by a coal car or something. What was up with that?
Well, that's definitely not a dangling plot line. It gets fulfilled. Everything's finished because what it is as I said, Miss Norman uses it as a convenient lie to try to get him off the scent of what's going on with the senator. There was a kid that died, so whenever she's able to put that together for him, she thinks that's going to end it. The seance then, the medium asks if it is that kid, and the kid says no. So it works as a red herring, I think, well, because what it's showing us is not is not wasting our time with just a separate story. It's showing us that Miss Norman is up to no good, which is going to reveal the further conspiracy plot that's going on. But it does seem to be like, especially because that conspiracy doesn't get revealed for a while, it does seem to be like, well, why is that even there?
Yeah. It's just to throw them off is what you're saying.
Exactly, yeah. It's just to throw them off of the scent, yeah.
Yeah, she does a good job of being like this movie's horror harbinger. Like every horror movie that's great has a harbinger in there somewhere.
Road. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's got a death curse.
Yeah, exactly.
And in this movie, she's the one that's like, this house don't want nobody's butts in it.
Oh yeah, what did she say? God. There's a line in it that it was just
it doesn't want people in it or something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't want people. That is a dope line. I liked that.
Wouldn't it have been awesome, though, if there was a scene in there where it was George C. Scott in the house and the ghostly voice from the house goes, "Get out of me, bro. Get out of me.
Bro, you're deep in me. Get out of me.
Get out of my guts, my house guts." I think that definitely would have made the movie better.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, man. Yeah, such a cool flick, man. And it's like we were saying, I do feel like this influenced so much. And even a lot of the soundtrack in this movie, I think influenced a lot of other movies too. Like, especially towards the start of the flick, there's some really eerie, depressing, like piano and orchestral stuff that so reminds me of the music at the end of House of the Devil.
Oh,
whenever it's showing her in the hospital.
Yeah.
It's got the same like chord construction stuff where it's like it's a minor chord with a major 7, and it's called a minor major 7 chord. Really eerie, spoopy sounds. And it uses those, and that just reminded me of House of the Devil.
That's
which
awesome.
is, again, another movie that features a big old spooky house. As we said, definitely influenced other flicks like The Ring, The Others. What was the one that we did recently, Steve? What Lies Beneath?
Yeah, What Lies Beneath. Yeah, I definitely saw a good bit of that. Though What Lies Beneath is not as well developed as this. It's definitely what Lies Beneath was going for.
Yeah, and not getting.
Yeah.
Brandon, did you like What Lies Beneath?
I liked it when I was when
it came out.
When it came out and saw it in theaters, I liked it. And I remember thinking, maybe about a year ago, I was like, hey, I haven't seen that in forever. It's on streaming. I'm going to watch it. And I watched it and I'm like, oh, Yeah,
it's not good.
This isn't really good, and it's you got a great cast and a great director attached to it, and you're just like, what happened?
And I feel like, too, this is another one of those wonderful movie scenarios, just like Volcano and Dante's Peak coming out at the same time, where, it's like if you compare this movie to The Shining that came out the same year, it's like both of them have this amazing Steadicam use.
Yeah.
The ball thing we talked about, the kid thing. It's like there's so many shared ideas between those movies. And also, I really like that shot, too, by the way, where it's the Steadicam quickly going up the stairs is like the ghost vision. It's like super Evil Dead. It felt just like the Evil Dead ghost vision.
Ooh, I wanted to ask that. Okay, so when he goes to the mansion, that shot of them driving up the driveway is a great shot.
Oh, yeah.
But it looks like, I cannot imagine how because it's like, it doesn't look like a helicopter shot. It looks too stable to be a helicopter shot. And then, like, it would be right above the trees, so the trees would be moving. So it's like, did they find just like a big pole and climb up it or something?
That's a good question.
It's actually a great shot. I wonder how they got it. It just doesn't seem to be a helicopter shot, especially in the 70s for how smooth it is.
I mean, I don't know how big they were making jibs back then.
Yeah, could be.
I mean, it'd have to be
it'd be pretty tall. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know nowadays they make them huge, but I don't know about back then. I don't know.
I was thinking maybe what they did was a jib and on a hill a little bit further away and used a maybe tighter lens and just did like a smaller, slower pan. But I don't know. I loved the shot, and just watching it, I was like, how did they get that? It just doesn't work for me unless, like, maybe there was like a telephone tower nearby that they were just like, oh, cool. You just stand up there and take it.
Maybe they hired a ghost.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. What, you can do that?
Well, it was a stunt ghost.
Oh,
Yeah,
stunt.
stunt
Oh, well, yeah,
ghost.
no, I know about stunt ghosts, obviously.
Them and the stunt orphans have their own guilds. Bring in the stunt orphan for
Bring
the
in the
death
stunt
shot.
orphan to actually drown.
We don't want a real
What
kid
was that,
dying.
mister? Nothing.
Don't worry about it. You're going to be a star, they say. I think the only tweak I would want out of this is I would like to see it remade with George C. Scott as Ebenezer Scrooge instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He calls the kid a spot of mustard or a crumb of beef.
Exactly,
Yeah.
dude. And I'm thinking, too, like, whenever, he gets the vision that the kid, was drowned and stuff, he'd be like, oh, better decrease the surplus population. The orphan house is overrun.
At the end, as the house is burning down, he sees a goose running in, and he's like, perfect.
A cooked goose for everyone. He's happy the house burns down because then he won't have to buy another shovel of coal, stuff like that.
You just hear Tiny Tim under the water going, bless us.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, man. As far as like any final thoughts and a 1 to 10 rating, why don't you kick us off there, Steve, and let us know where you would put this bad boy.
I really enjoyed this. It is not too long. It's an hour 40. I think it runs at a good pace. It keeps my attention as it's going, and like it does what good haunting / ghost movies do, where it keeps you glued to the screen looking for things to move, like looking for something to shift or change,
Watching the backgrounds and stuff.
yeah. And that keeps you invested. And the story, I like the world that it exists in, where you just don't even have to explain some of these ghost things, because it's just like, yeah, everybody knows that. We've all got a house nearby that's got ghosts in it. Duh. I like all that. I like George C. Scott, Trish Van Devere. I think the cast is all great. The setting, the way it's shot, everything. Enjoy it. It's not perfect, for sure. It's got its problems. As you said, that red herring probably comes a little too early for the reveal of the conspiracy, for it all to sort of fit together. Yeah, I mean, I guess if I'm grading this, I'm gonna say it's definitely been super influential. So, like, I'm gonna say maybe like an 8 to an 8.5. It's definitely influenced a ton of movies I love, and very watchable.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Brandon, what do you think about that?
I agree with Steve on all those. I'm very curious to see how the remake is going to be. And I wonder if they even think about flipping genders and making the George C. Scott character a female character.
That could work absolutely.
And get a female to direct it and get that perspective of loss of family and saving a child from a female perspective. I think that would be really interesting to see.
And let a man get chased by a chair for once.
Yeah, let a man get the cry and scream.
That's actually something I did want to praise this movie for, is it puts George C. Scott in the traditional hysterical role, in the role of I believe in ghosts, because normally that role is the female character who immediately sort of believes in the ghosts and the male character who's skeptical. So
that's true.
That's interesting.
That is true.
Yeah.
I agree with everything Steve said, and I probably give it an 8 as well. You know, I almost hate that I always take so long to go back and rewatch it, and that it's something that most people forget about. And then you go back and watch it, and you're like, what the hell? Why haven't I been watching this like every year during certain seasons or something?
Yeah, it's one of those I could see myself rewatching for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it gets. You know, I watched it twice before we recorded this.
Yeah, me too.
So the second rewatch was even better because the first rewatch was like, I haven't seen this in years. I don't know what's really going to happen. And then I rewatched it again. I was like, it's just a whole different experience. So I think it's fantastic and definitely up there. Should be ranked up there with tops even as The Shining.
Dude, it's crazy just to see that this is one of those flicks that so few people, you know, put on their top lists and talk about influential horror movies and stuff like that, because it clearly did influence so much stuff that even came as late as, you know, I mean, when did The Ring come out? Like 20 years after this.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting to see how far ahead of its time it was in a lot of ways. And like I said, the soundtrack, the setting, all that stuff just builds up that really grim, tense atmosphere of foreboding and haints and boogers that I love so much, that so few movies do very well. Even though it is a slow burn, it doesn't overstay its welcome. Usually those kinds of movies like at least top out at 2 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
But this movie moves by at a pretty reasonable pace, and it is a pretty tight hour and 40. Maybe that's also partly why we do have that big exposition dump, because if they kept following the trail of breadcrumbs for him to come to that hypothesis, then we probably would have ended up with a 2+ hour movie. Yeah, so maybe they wanted to keep it a little tighter for that, but it seems like there was probably a more elegant way to get around some of those conclusions.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
But it still kept me gripped the entire time, and especially just those beats where stuff suddenly flies off the rails and things get really scary and intense or graphic, even just for a split second. Really never lets you get a sense of security or just kind of feel a lull or feel like you're starting to not pay attention to the movie because you know something crazy is probably going to happen again.
Yeah.
Really well-paced movie. Yet another movie that Brandon, you've introduced me to that I never would have watched otherwise, that has become a part of my movie watching habits. It's become a regular. I think you guys are right. I think about an 8 is probably where I would put this one as well.
Yeah.
Look forward to watching it again for sure. And I'm also curious about that remake. Do we know anything about that? Do we know a cast, a director? Is it just like we know there is going to be one?
Yeah, we just know that they're looking to do it. I'm sure that got delayed a little bit by this entire situation. But I do see here that the director of have you seen Taboo?
Taboo, no.
Okay. Taboo, the show with
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy, yeah. He's a director on Taboo, so TV director.
I would have figured they'd go for old what's his name, Haunting of Hill House guy.
Oh
like
yeah, Mike Flanagan's great. If you haven't seen Taboo though, I can see how that tone could definitely translate into the Changeling. Yeah.
Taboo's super weird, and plus you get a TV director to do this movie, which this guy that directed it
Peter
went on to direct a lot of TV shows.
So I can see this possibly being good. So hopeful.
Right on, man. Well, Brandon, I'm so glad that you suggested this one. I really enjoyed it, and like I said, it's definitely one that I'll watch again. And if you guys have enjoyed this episode, one of the best things that you could do to help support our buddy Brandon here is to check out that GoFundMe that you've got going to pay for your extremely expensive medical bills and your situation that you've got going on. If you guys like this episode and want to help us out, donating to that is going to be one of the best things that you can do. Brandon, does that have like a catchy URL, or is it just, GoFundMe /34978? Is it the kind of thing that we'll just put up a link and you guys can click on it there on the Facebook page or whatever?
Probably just put put up a link.
Okay.
I'm looking. Yeah. Yeah, because it's GoFundMe / let's help. Yeah, it's just.
Okay.
It's a novel of a URL. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, we'll put that up on Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. And if you guys feel so kind to toss a couple bucks Brandon's way, that would mean the world to us. So be sure to consider doing that. And, hey, if you want to do something totally for free that helps us out, go on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you're listening to this and rate and review the podcast.
Let them know how good it is.
Tell them. You got to tell the world how good it is and how good it gets to you by leaving a 5-star review. And at the end of your review, leave a question that you would like us boys to answer on a future FAQ installment of the Preview Palace. So be sure to do that for us. It'll help us out a ton. Brandon, I hope this ain't the last time we get you on the show here. I'd love to have you back for another movie sometime.
Get you. Yeah.
Even if we got to do it from the hospital, we'll figure out a way.
Yeah.
We'll figure out a way. Life finds a way.
Life finds a way, as 2020 has shown us all.
Oh, my God. No kidding, man. Steve, can they find a way to follow us on social media?
On social media? on the Twitter and the Instagram, @DeadLovelyPod. You can follow us. And as we said, patreon.com/deadandlovely. Go become a patron. $1 gets you, at the very least, the extra episodes a month, and $5 you might even get to decide what we cover. So head on over there.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Brandon, for taking the time out of your day to tune in. I know you got your wife and your kids. They want to hang out with you. You're all cool. You're like the most popular guy in the house, I guess. So they probably want to spend some time with you. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hang out with us dorks. Sorry it took so freaking long to make this happen, right?
Yeah, I'm glad we got it to work. I'm glad I'm not in the hospital for once. So thank y'all for working around my crazy schedule.
Heck yeah. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been a fun one. And on next week's episode, we're going to be doing a very special pick from my wife. It is the week of her birthday, and my wife picked a movie.
She did. Ooh. She picked a movie that I'm excited to do. Death Becomes Her.
And I have not seen this movie, but I think once a really long time ago. I don't remember like anything about it other than it had weird special effects.
Oh, it does.
You're going to love it.
Yeah.
Also, Robert Zemeckis did it, that What Lies Beneath. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Maybe not the best Zemeckis movie to point out, but...
Yeah, he did some other movies, but he also did What Lies Beneath, you remember?
That one.
Beowulf?
Oh, no.
Express?
No. Scary. So you guys be sure to tune in for that, and we'll be talking about Death Becomes Her next week, and we will catch you guys then. Thanks as always for listening. I have been Uncle Ben.
Hollywood Steve.
Brandon Suttles.
And we have been Dead and Lovely. We'll catch you guys next time. Yes, we finally made it through our first ever PG rated episode. Yeah.